Hello everyone, Edain here and welcome back to the Edain Mod Battle School, where today we're talking about heroes, but more specifically the roles they play in the Edain Mod. Because if there's one thing I love about the Edain Mod's work is what they've done with specifying what heroes do, what they're good at, what they're specialised at doing, and what role they just play in general. So I've got Gondor because, again, they're a faction that just kind of gives a good bit of everything to talk about. And the main thing we need to talk about is the main classes that every hero has, every role that they play. We have scout heroes, we have support heroes, we have hero killers, and we have mass slayers. Those are the four main categories. But there are a few distinctions. Scout heroes normally don't really have any minor descriptions. Obviously, character like Pippin, who is more about just being a overall tank when it comes to its later stages and having a damage dealing effect, is different to say, and having a vision aura is different compared to, say, Drauglin of Angmar, whose ability is to turn into a wolf, move really fast, and pit and target one thing and do some pretty decent AoE damage later on in the game. And then there's like Gorbag and Shagrat, who have a mix of damage, resource generation, scouting tools, defense tools, summoning tools. They've got a whole bunch of different things going for them as well. But all things that scout heroes do, their primary role is to scout the map. So currently you can see we have the Fog of War barrier. Pippin's role is to view more of that, so he can see what's coming up ahead. Obviously, the ability Curiosity of the Fool is basically him seeing into the Palantir and getting some more vision. But they changed it to, instead of him doing that, making him weaker, it makes him faster. Because that's another thing about scout heroes. They're meant to be fast. They're not meant to be touched. They're meant to be something that can just run around, do their job, fall back, and do it again in a little bit. And yeah, all scout heroes are like that. Because even think of like Gildor, who has a large vision of the Palantir basically on his level 1 ability. You've got Rumen and Orothin, which are two different scout heroes that can move fast, camouflage, and become more powerful with the gifts of Lothlorien and their stellar abilities later on. Who else is there? Bill Fernie, who requires money to level up, but then after that can gain money from damaging enemies, can steal resources from enemy buildings, disguise himself so get into an enemy base as a way of vision, peek at the closest enemy hero so you know what's going on, and then also weaken an enemy building and have vision over it. Then there's the dwarves that have Bilbo, which is basically the same as Frodo and not Frodo and Sam, same as Merry and Pippin, in that he is meant to just be a small little scout hero that you don't normally see, but also has a nice treasure making tool, which is a way in the past I've said is a way of dealing with AI, because they will rush towards those resources. And then you've got Nori, who is kind of like Drauglin, but also levels up independently, has a summon in his brother Dory, but also has the AoE attack, similar to Drauglin, but nowhere near as good. And then lastly, there's the Hunter, which is all about getting a advantage by finding lairs, dealing damage to something and gaining more health, and eventually getting a Warg Rider summon, which is really cool. Anyway, that's enough of scout heroes. Pippin, get out of here. Next up is the support heroes. And yes, Gondor is almost entirely made of support heroes. But there is a big distinction between what I mean by support heroes. Because even though there's 5 of them that all support, Baragon supports buildings and heroes later on with his level 10 power, but mostly buildings. Boromir doesn't do as much supporting with his a leadership effect as he does with just being a tank and debilitating his enemies. With Horn of Gondor, his last stand makes it so enemies around him are going to be harder to escape his wrath. He can easily defend himself, and also summon some extra help to help in combat. So he's more of a combat support. Then we have Faramir, who is more of a versatile support. who can work as a ranged character, a swordsman, or a knight. He's one of the few characters that run 3 different roles as a character. But also, again, has a leadership effect depending on where he is. All nearby friendly units gain fear resistance, infantry gain more damage, and cavalry gains more armor. This used to be independent depending on what form he was in. If it was sword, bow, or cavalry, he would give a different leadership. But he also has a, used to have a leadership, not leadership, an experience gaining power. But he now has an ability that gives allies in the area bonus speed. So really good for a strong cavalry charge. You want to run him with Imrahil and some Don Amroth Knights. He's got the crippling shot, or if you put him on his mount, his dash attack, the heroic charge, which I really love this ability. Heroic charge is amazing. Knock all things out away around him as if he was the arrow is so cool. And he's also got the proven value even to act as a slightly bigger tank in certain situations. And when he's on foot, he will then switch to his sword when he uses proven value for the duration. He used to be able to just toggle between them regularly, but they wanted to give him more abilities, so they decided, you know what? Let's just turn this into something even better. And then Imrahil is a interesting one because he specializes in the secondary troops of Gondor, the fiefdom troops, the errand rider summons from a signal fire, the Don Amroth troops, and yeah, that's all of them. Don Amroth soldiers and knights, and he has that in his leadership on here. He's then got his cavalry focused charge attack. He can give Don Amroth troops nearby a heal on themselves for every attack, and then even summon his own Atheling Guard, which allows discipline to come back quicker. I think it's only discipline as well. Yeah, but yeah, Imrahil's ability to recharge faster while near the Atheling Guard, but the Atheling Guard also just heal themselves with every attack because they're the Prince's Chosen. And they will be. They've also made it so this unit will not be mounted if he's not mounted as well. But let's be honest, if you're not using a mounted Imrahil, you're doing something wrong. But yeah, that's the more unit and combat-based supports. Beregond, as I said, was a more building support because his abilities target buildings. He can give a building some defenders. He can give a healing aura to a building. Buildings gain, in a large area, suffer less damage from enemy infantry and cavalry and less damage from fire, monsters, and siege engines. And he also makes that eventually to heroes gaining armor as well. Nearby buildings and heroes gain a bunch of armor. It's no longer invulnerability. Reta Indenot. I'm not sure what that means in English, but it's definitely not English. And then finally, obviously, the commander of the White Company makes his Citadel Guard summon a White Company summon, but also allows him to target heroes. So he is a more versatile support as he levels up. Some characters like Arwen is a pure hero support. Hammer is a hero support. There's not a lot of hero supports, actually. The Witch King used to actually be a hero support when he had the Favour of the Witch King ability on himself and not on the Citadel. Galadriel is a hero support. Yep, she's a hero support. But also a unit support, but mostly a hero support with her gifts, abilities, and all the things that come from them. And then we have Denethor, which is a specialist support. I don't really know what to put him under because he just kind of does a lot of everything, which isn't categorized in building, hero, or combat supports. He has vision. He has cost reduction on your units, your basic units, and faster recruit speed. He has get a bunch of money right away before a building gets destroyed. He has bonus damage on your unit, so technically he's got a bit of combat support. And then also his basic attacks aren't even attacks; they summon troops, and those troops can now also come with a banner carrier that gives a leadership boost. So Denethor is a very awkward support character. He is a specialist support, is the closest thing I can call him to being a support. He's not really got what I would say a standard role in his faction. Other characters are obviously like Malbeth and Lothariel for Arnor and Belfalas, since they're basically Den of Four in different factions, with slightly different abilities, but basically the same role. A specialist, because he has a bunch of different tools in his favour. Then we come to the hero killers. The most infamous one is not Aragorn, actually, it's Celeborn. But Aragorn would be designated, I believe, as a hero killer if he ever stops bloody talking. Okay, he's finally done monologuing. So he's got Anduril Flame of the West, which is what makes him a hero killer. Just permanently more damage as he eventually becomes king. But also just temporarily deals bonus damage and has bonus armor. Blade Master is what it originally used to be called. Really strong ability. Athalas to heal himself and nearby heroes so he can keep fighting for longer. Brego, he also has Knife Throw and Elendil at some point, but obviously they get taken over when he becomes king, when he gets the Oathbreakers. And then also King of Men, which makes it so nearby units become fearless and Gondor heroic statues give more armor. Which is a pretty piss-poor leadership, honestly. And I do feel like this needs to be changed in some way to not affect heroic statues, because who's using heroic statues in 2025? Come on, be honest. Who's still using those things? Anyway, focusing on the main things here. Anduril and Athalas are the two abilities he has throughout his entire reign as a hero. So that is what designates him as a hero slayer, because that's what he does best. Obviously, in fact, heroes like Celeborn are far more focused on just being a hero killer. Characters like Durmarth, when he is in his Enforcer form instead of his Guardsman form, that is meant to be a hero killer, does massive hero damage. Lurtz, with his pinning shot and Carnage, is something back from Bear Me 1 and is terrifying when it comes to you. And obviously, other hero killers. Eowyn is always going to be a terrifying hero killer. Or is it Celeborn? The twins are a bit of a off-meta hero killer. Or just remember another specialist support. Círdan. Círdan is definitely a specialist support because he helps boats. He helps boats and has a teleport. He is definitely a specialist support. Anyway. Yeah, hero killers. Their whole thing is just to do massive amounts of damage as fast as possible and just kill any hero because they just do massive damage. And lastly, we have mass slayers. Now, this can also be a bit of an odd thing because Gandalf in himself is, yes, a mass slayer, but with abilities like Lightning Sword can also be a hero killer. But in most cases, you think about Gandalf, you think about his Wizard Blast, you think about his Starry Light, you think about Word of Power. So he's just doing massive amounts of damage to everything. Heroes, not so much. Heroes, it comes back and forth. But his main thing is just doing damage to everything all at once. Instead of just hitting one thing constantly, like a hero killer, he's slapping everything back and forth. Same with Saruman, same with Galadriel to some respect. Same with Elrond, again, to some respect. Some heroes do go between having several roles. But Gondor probably has the most standard set of characters. But yeah, Gandalf is definitely more of a mass slayer when you see him on the board. But now we come to like the second subclasses. As I've already mentioned, we have unit support, we have specialist support, we have hero and building supports, we have hero slayers that have like a mass slayer ability like Demand of the King or Oathbreakers, or Gandalf being a mass slayer but having a hero slayer ability in the form of his Starry Light or Lightning Sword. No one hero is ever going to be like, okay, this is exactly what they do all the time. Even scout heroes don't follow by that rule all the time. But the roles that the Edain team give some boundaries to what every hero should technically be allowed to do. And there are, again, some heroes that kind of break those rules. Instead of, like, obviously with Gandalf, his abilities, even though they can be hero-killing abilities, they still do AoE damage attack a lot of things all at once. So they are still classified as mass slayer abilities. Aragorn, even though his Demand of the King is a AoE killing machine because it summons Army of the Oathbreakers, it is still a hero killing tool because it keeps the heroes at bay or brings them in even closer so he can get them with his when his Anduril is fully unleashed. Faramir is a mini mass slayer when it comes to his crippling shot or heroic charge because of the AoE damage it does. But it's not a lot, so you see him more as a support character. Boromir is not as mass slayer at all, but he does have AoE knockback attacks. But that is more of a combat support ability because it runs really well. It is keeping everything locked in place. And Imrahil is obviously just a pure support. Beregond is a pure support, but his support tools can vary depending on when he gets to level 10, because he's getting his hero tools. And Pippin is definitely just a pure scout. Even his Dagger of the Noldor, which does big damage to one thing, it's still not a lot. It's still not a lot of damage. Even that double damage, the best you're going to do is kill a troll, which is cool because that's kind of what it's made for. And other than that, as I said, there's some heroes that do have split roles depending on what they do. Galadriel, as I've already said, has a bit of mass slayer effects in her with her own little mini word of power, and her attacks are a large beam of light. In her Queen of the Storms mode, she's definitely a mass slayer. Those are pure mass slayer abilities. She weakens her enemies, does AoE attacks, knock down, can control her enemies, knock them down with earthquakes or torrents of water. Elrond is a mass slayer, but also support at the same time because of his Water to the Bruinen ability, but also Restoration, which brings back other heroes' abilities, which makes him a hybrid in that regard. That's the word, hybrid. A hybrid character that has 2 or 3 things that split his personality, compared to some heroes that are full on one thing. They have a few things that do little extra bonuses, but they still focus on their main roles. Every hero has something like that. Even heroes that don't really do a lot of some things, like for example Glorfindel, he is a pure mass slayer, but he has tools that work as a combat support, like his paralyzing light ray, or his starlight ability, which gives him healing when he's not using it, but then also can be an explosion to do massive damage to enemies nearby. Then there's Eowyn is a pure hero killer. Her abilities are meant to just destroy a hero. Same with Celeborn. They're meant to bring all heroes in. And he supports himself by having more heroes nearby, dealing more damage. And what else? Who other heroes? Witch King. Witch King is a mix between supports because of his whoever he chooses gets a big boost ability, the favor of the Witch King, but also is just a mass slayer because his attacks are AoE knockback attacks, and he has just a large list of powerful abilities that are all terrifying to go up against. But yeah, whenever you see a hero, don't ever just assume that's the one thing they do. There's always like one or two other things that's going on about them. But when you're using heroes, always consider what you need in a fight when you're trying to win the game. Some heroes have economy bonuses. For example, Bilbo. You want Bilbo early to get the extra economy constantly. Beregond, you want to level up early on and get him early on because he is amazing at supporting your army. He gives you regen, so you don't need to build a well. He gives you defenses, so you don't have to defend buildings constantly. He makes things difficult to destroy, so it's even easier to keep things alive. So he is a hero you should probably always get. Denethor, again, is another hero you should always get because he offers way more vision than Pippin can. He gives you bonus resources from a building just because you need it. 770 resources, and then I could just demolish this building and get more money out of it. If I really was desperate and needed that building gone. I could spam infantry just by getting him to level 3, so we can then get troops way cheaper and recruited way faster. The only deficit is that they can't get upgrades, but who cares? They're emergency troops. This is an emergency situation. And then bonus damage. Use it when you need it. But you should probably always use it because, one, it looks cool. That's just mad Denethor right there. But yeah, Denethor is a weird hero. Always think about every single hero. You should always consider when I should get this hero. Do I need this hero? Because I get a lot of people telling me, oh, you should play with Gandalf more. Why don't you ever play with Gandalf? Because honestly, a mass slayer that costs 4,000 resources and is a bit on the weak side, I don't really need them as Gondor. Gondor has enough slaying tools. I don't need Gandalf on the field. If I find the ring, by all means, I will get Gandalf. But if I have Boromir instead, I'll get the ring and give it to Boromir because then he becomes a monster and you can just summon some heroic troops of your own, which are amazing troops, by the way. And they just offer so much value.
I see it day by day.
One more thing before I go. We also need to talk about heroes that come from summons. So Gondor actually has a lot of summons that make heroes. An Oath Fulfilled summons the King of the Dead, which has a singular ability, which is really good. If you just want to, make a sound. Yeah. Nearby enemies are afraid and become weaker, as, the Army of the Dead is just coming to quell them from existence. But then you've also got some abilities that have a more specialized type of hero. For example, Halbarad, his ability. Halbarad proudly bears the banner of Arwen on Dormial and inspires his troops regularly. Nearby fallen units will be replaced. If you're in danger and you need a quick pick-me-up, this power is the perfect way of just getting back on your feet. With thanks to Halbarad and the Great Company as well, just giving your troops better abilities. But also the healing of Rivendell. The twins heal all nearby units and regenerate their health. That is amazing. That is amazing. That's way better than what it used to be. It now affects units. You just heal all your units to full. This is a way of just having a immediate pick-me-up in the middle of a bad fight that might not have been going in your favour. Because you just got these units that give your troops more armour. And you've just got this hero that's giving you regeneration. And this other hero that's just healing your troops. Amazing! You just then, thanks to them, won this encounter against a foe. And obviously there's the Eagles, but I'm not going to play them because of how loud the music is. And then there's also things like Rohan Answers, which has a few other abilities. Obviously, heroes summoned from powers are not going to be anywhere near as good as heroes you can just recruit, because they're not permanent. They're temporary summons. The only summon I think that should be... Actually, yeah, the only power hero that you actually keep permanently is the Three Hunters as Rohan. Every other hero that is a summon has limited abilities, but has good abilities. One good example of that is Radagast. You have 3 choices. Summon Radagast can be on an eagle for big AoE damage from the skies that can't be targeted, has a heal, and can summon an eagle to strike people down from afar. He could be on foot and have a Wizard Blast, and Brambles to slow down his enemies so your allies can escape. You can also be on a Rosgobel Rabbit Chariot and just watch as those rabbits tear things apart by running into them. I love that chariot. So much fun. Anyway, that is everything I want to talk about in this Battle School video. Heroes. They are all very important. They all have their own roles. You can even see here. Strengths, scouting, building and hero supports, unit supports, ranged combat supports, unit support, mass slaying, hero slaying. If you're ever not sure about what a hero is, hover over them. It will tell you. And until then, I hope you've all enjoyed and learnt something from this. And I'll see you all in the next one. Farewell.